My name is John Herb. I am 45 and I'm from Williamsport, Pennsylvania, home of the Little League.
And how many years were you in the service, John?
21 years, 11 months, and about 25 days.
And which branches of the military did you serve in?
First was the United States Marine Corps from 1990 to 1998. With about a year break, I joined the Pennsylvania National Guard and did reserve time and active time for another 14 years. I was multiple MOSs in both, actually. I was primarily a meteorological crewman, artillery attachment, and that was in 0847,
Okay.
and an 0844 survey control for artillery. We would go out and we would survey control points and put points in for accuracy. I remember going to Parris Island. I remember them driving us around at night on a bus. It seemed like 5 hours, and it would just disorient you. And off the bus we went. We stood on yellow footprints that were painted on the macadam, and we were stripped of all our belongings, our clothes, fresh haircuts. Every Marine is basic infantry, no matter what your occupation is going to be, a cook, whatever, but you're a basic rifleman and infantry first. You get up, you have set time frames for everything you do. It's attention to detail wherever you do, and that was you don't understand. You're confused. You're just going along with the program for a few weeks, but it doesn't take you long to understand that they want you to be attention to detail. Instant obedience to orders saves lives. So it's just it's chaotic until third phase, basic training, and by then, even if you're getting smoked, so to speak, in the sand pit, or you're being thrashed,
Right.
jumping jacks, push-ups, whatever, you're laughing,
Yeah.
because at that point in time you've got it mentally beat. So, but the pride starts setting in the third phase.
Yeah.
And you don't get Marine Corps high and tight until you've earned it in third phase. Then you get your green sweater,
Okay.
and you're high and tight, and they stop calling you recruits. They start calling you privates
Okay.
or Marines, and your chest is swollen because
Yeah.
at that point in time that you're on your way. You learned a lot, and I was fortunate we kept it fresh. Like cooks go in and that's what they do. They cook the whole time. We were versatile. A lot of airlifts. I learned how to spy rig, which is we would hang from sticks from the helicopter, and spy is insertion extraction for not necessarily covert, but for quick insertions when needed. And also we would do fast roping, learn how to come out of the 53s, fast roping, things of that nature. So we were very busy. Pendleton was the Pacific Fleet, so there was a lot of movement with Guam and the Philippines and Okinawa, Japan still, and all the little islands that we would coordinate with.
Gotcha.
So it was great. It was great training. Operation Restore Hope, Somalia, in '93. I had a corporal. His name was Corporal Dawson, and he was from Laughlin, California. I believe it was Laughlin, California. His father died. I was the Lance Corporal. I was in charge of the barracks. I had kind of worked my way up to. They knew that I could, handle myself, and they asked me. Said, Corporal Dawson's father passed away, and they asked me. Said, would you mind going over there and filling in? They were actually bottling up, cleaning up, and packing, getting out of there, and asked me if I would go over there for about 6 months just to cover for him, and so I did. So I had like half a day to pack and get ready, and I was on a plane, and there I went. In Somalia, we were land based at the Coliseum inside Somalia, and we were still having a lot of active, a lot of kinetic activity with the warlords there. What was going on is UNICEF and there were some other entities that were bringing in supplies, foodstuffs, and they were getting attacked, and these warlords were taking all the food. And then they were distributing it on their own, and we were there to kind of protect the food items, water, things of that nature. So we still had a lot of combative type situations. Now they weren't called combative because it was a humanitarian operation. We received a humanitarian award and a meritorious unit citation called a MUC. But they would never consider that, combat zone. But, people were being killed, people were being, hurt over there, attacked. So it was busy. You had to watch your six. But Pennsylvania National Guard has a huge lineage. I implore anyone to study and look into the Pennsylvania Guards and its histories. I joined that for a Try-One program just to see. And another nice thing that I enjoyed about the National Guard is our unit was all comprised of people that were former military that wanted to still have that lifestyle, but had families, had school, had other responsibilities. So you could kind of do both. And sometimes it proved to be very difficult. Actually, a lot of times, because you would miss weekends, events, parties, things of that nature. So you still had a taste of, the military, because when people say we sacrifice, that's what we do. We, as the United States, started working a lot more with less than lethals because of coin operations. You had a lot of, we were now, battling door to door inside people's villages. There's civilians on the battlefield, cops, we would call them, civilians on the battlefield. So you had to, learn how to work around them. And we weren't just going in and knocking buildings down. We were going in and we were, hearts and minds and getting them to understand that we're there to help them. The war had been going on. There's been war going in Bosnia for, 100 years. So we were in charge of finding mass graves, protecting them, supporting some of the local government there. And then we had an Iraqi deployment that was soon after that. We were security for a PRT. It was called a Provincial Reconstruction Team. What we were doing was we were working with the Department of State and Department of Agriculture, and to lessen the effect of the Taliban movement in Afghanistan, we were teaching the villagers how to grow crops, so they were more self-sufficient. We built hydro dams and put some electric to these small villages so that they could run equipment, sewing machines, things of that nature. My tour duty in Afghanistan ended up being, I was a sergeant of the guard at nighttime, and we ran raid cameras. There were Sony built raid cameras that were telescoped into the air, and these cameras were good up to 12, 15 miles for optics, and they had night vision capabilities, and we would catch Taliban movement at night on the mountainsides, and a lot of times they would use flashlights to coordinate their moves up and down the mountainside, and we would catch this on camera. And then as long as we got positive ID and we found if they were carrying weapons and rock, mortars and things of that nature over the rocks, I would call in to our command, let them know, and then I would get the green light to call in air support or drones, and they would come in and they would blast them. It was May 22nd, 2008, excuse me, it was 2008. And I remember because my daughter's birthday is May 23rd. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm gonna die the day before her birthday. I just remember them 2 trucks got around the corner and all hell broke loose. Mortars were coming in, rockets were coming in. Thank God they were falling short, but they were hitting the mountainside, so it was blowing a ton of debris on the trucks. We were taking fire from above on both sides. I estimated 12 to 14 spots we were taking fire from. Straight up above us, I would look through the turret and I saw bullets bouncing off my gunner's head, off his helmet. There was such a distance they weren't effective, but we were still getting hit regardless. And it was just a matter of time until they dialed in on us. So we got around the corner. As my truck came around the corner, the back of my truck got hit with debris or a rock or something, and it hit the rear wheel, and it knocked my tire partly off. We had run flats, but it knocked my tire off the rim part way. And I'm looking out my bulletproof window, and bullets are just flying off my window. I wanted to get out. We engaged every cave that we could see. And we also did a 24-hour artillery barrage on the village. And there was one last deployment I decided to go on. It was a pretty distinct deployment. It was to Kuwait. And the reason why they were going to Kuwait is we were pulling everything out of Iraq. And Kuwait's very close to the K-crossing border that goes into Iraq. So we were doing security for the equipment coming from Iraq, going to the port of Kuwait to get shipped back to the United States. And then all the units, the troops that were coming back, they were on buses. We would do security for them. And we would run them to the airport and secure them all the way until they got on the plane, and then we would go back to our base there. And there was a base in Kuwait called Camp Virginia, and it was being leased from the Kuwaiti government, and a huge oil reserve was found underneath the base. So the lease ended and we had to break that base down and move it. Just got to see a lot of logistical design that makes you respect what happens when we go to other countries to support them. It's not just throwing troops and guns on a plane and sending them over there. I think veteran, I think that's simply someone that has decided to leave the comforts of their home and family to put on a uniform, a flag, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard, and represents the United States as an entity that's there to secure our borders, secure our way of lives. A veteran is someone who has taken the time to leave their families and go and learn what our history is about. And you don't have to be a 22-year veteran. You don't have to be someone that attained the rank of colonel or a high rank to be a veteran. The only reason I retired is because I had a little girl that was 7 at the time, and the deployment to Kuwait was really hard on her. And I have 3 daughters, and with the oldest, which has served herself in the United States Navy. But she had a hard time when I put uniform on when I came back from my drill weekends, and I saw the effect that it was having on her. So, and I think that I was starting to be selfish and continuing on. I did my time, and I've missed a lot of things in my own life. So if not for my daughter, I probably would have done another 10 years. I probably would have stayed for a couple more deployments. There's still countries and things of that nature that I haven't seen, but it's a sacrifice. It is. But it's one I would have done it all again. Absolutely.